G'day, my name's Nathan Klinge and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of RSL Care South Australia. I just wanted to take this opportunity to speak with you, our residents, our family members, our volunteers, the stakeholders of RSL Care South Australia, to let you know what the latest is in terms of our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the past few weeks, you've received, certainly for the residents and family members, some letters and correspondence from me, similarly from Kelly Whelan, our Chief Operations Officer. We've posted things through our social media and online, but really what I wanted to do now is just have a bit of a chat with you to let you know what the current state of play is and what I think things will look like as we move forward over the next couple of weeks, noting that things have been changing really quickly for all of us over the last month or so, which has required us here as an organisation to respond to those changes really on a daily basis as we prepare ourselves and get our organisation ready to provide our bit of the puzzle in terms of the response to this community challenge. So in terms of where we're at now, for our residents and family members and our volunteers, you will know that I've restricted visitor access to both the War Veterans Home and Moreland Court. This has been done on advice from the Chief Medical Officer, both at the state and federal levels. We really do look for the expert clinical advice in terms of what we need to do as our response as an organisation. And we've taken that advice and then we've applied it in the context of our own organisation and what we can manage with our facilities and the staffing that we have. With those restrictions, you will know that visits to our residents are restricted to between 9 and 5 each day, Monday to Friday, with no visits to occur out of hours and no visits to occur on weekends. Furthermore, those restrictions include only having one nominated designated family member or visitor per resident, and that person is the constant visitor across those available open windows. The reason that we have to restrict that down is as an organisation, we really need to know and understand who's entering the facility. We really need to be able to control the risks that anyone entering the facility poses, whether that's a family member visiting, a contractor, me as CEO, staff. We really need to be on top of who's coming onto the site and doing as best we can to ensure that anyone entering inside our walls isn't bringing in those risks and exposures that are occurring outside our walls, because our walls really do provide that last layer of defence for our residents and our staff in our 2 residential care facilities. So with those restrictions, I absolutely understand that places a lot of pressure. I absolutely understand that it's difficult for family members when you are having to choose who is your designated visitor. But the benefits of that from our perspective, from a staffing level, is we can then monitor with more accuracy who's entering, who's coming, and we can also then maintain the sort of registers we need in the event that we do have a COVID-19 exposure inside one of our facilities, which to date, thankfully, we haven't. We do not have any infection out of our facilities at this point in time, and we're working very hard to keep it that way. Another factor that comes into play for that family member is that with effect the 1st of May, every single person who enters an aged care facility must be immunised with the flu vaccination. We as an organisation need to be able to track and monitor that. So by restricting who can enter our facility, we've got a much better opportunity to understand and record that everyone has had that flu vax. Certainly by the 1st of May it becomes legislation that is what we have to do. We're certainly already working towards that, and I had my flu vax yesterday. So as an organisation, we're responding very much towards that directive, and we thank the family members and for their support in ensuring that you go out and get your flu vax, please. Yes, it's not the flu vax for COVID, but it will help minimise some of the exposures around the influenza season that we're about to enter, being the winter period for the Southern Hemisphere. It's a really high risk time for us in terms of what that might mean, not only for COVID, but for the normal strains of influenza we face as well. With those restrictions in place, I am acutely aware of the impact that is having on our residents, and our care staff, our wellbeing staff, our networks are working really hard to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that our residents are comfortable, they are as connected as we can be. We're utilising technology, telephones. writing letters, sending cards, Facebook, whatever we can to make sure that our residents are as engaged as they want to be through these times. That's a challenge. We know it's not perfect, but the situation we currently face is not a perfect one, so we need to be able to respond and react to that accordingly. The limitations on not having visitors after hours and on the weekends simply comes down to one of resource. As an aged care industry, we're not resourced to be security guards on the front gate. We're not resourced to be police checkers as people come in and out of the facility. And certainly for our night staff and weekend staff, it is very difficult for them to monitor the movement of visitors and things around the site when they're trying to get on with the business of caring for your loved ones. So that's the reason that we have no visits after hours or on the weekends, because it just enables our staff to focus on their core business of generating great outcomes for our residents. Again, I know that's difficult. I know that others in the industry have chosen to have no visits, where they've locked their facilities down and not enabled visitors on site at all. I completely understand those decisions. I respect those decisions that other providers have made on that, and I can certainly understand why they have chosen that, given how complicated it is to manage and track visitors through the site. However, in our case, because we are a smaller provider, we've just got the 2 sites. We do know our families pretty well. We know our residents well. We do know who comes in our site. We know each other by face. We know each other by name. That does mean we have some opportunities there where we can actually work together to make sure we're doing the right thing with our visits within the sites. You can help with that. You really can help with that. Please, I know the restrictions are challenging, but I'd ask you to comply with them. I'd ask that you wash your hands and use the hand sanitisers every time you enter the site. I'd ask that you only conduct your visits inside your family member's room, not in the communal areas of the residential care facilities. It's possible when you're doing the visits, because once again, we're really concerned about the exposures that you may bring from the outside into your family member's room. So you still need to maintain that social distancing within the resident's room while you're visiting. We ask that visits be restricted to 30 minutes. That helps to reduce the exposure time that we have on site, helps to reduce the amount of visitors we have on site at any given time as well. We do ask that if you're feeling unwell, if you've got a fever, if you've got a cough, that absolutely you do not come on site. That you need to quarantine yourself away from our facility until such time as you're feeling better. In the eventuality that happens, if you need to change over who the nominated person is, then please get in contact with us, and we can work with you to work out then who may take over the role as that nominated family member. We do also ask that you have your temperature taken when you enter the facility. That's critically important. I get my temperature taken every day. All of our staff get our temperatures taken before we start work in the morning and before we enter the facility, so that we can monitor ourselves and make sure that we're not bringing anything in, and we ask the same of our family members. That may mean you need to wait for a little bit at reception before you can go upstairs. I apologise for that if that's the case. The clock doesn't start on your 30-minute visit until we've taken your temperature and signed you in. Once you're inside the facility, then we know that everyone's okay, and again, we're reducing that risk exposure as much as we can. I want to say thank you for the response that we've had for the family members that are visiting, that have been really helpful in the way that you've complied with those directions and you've understood. Again, I get that it's difficult, and I've had those conversations with some family members, but equally those same family members have been really understanding and appreciative of the controls that we have. And really, we've all gotten our heads around the fact that this is just a necessary step that we have to do to ensure that we protect the residents that we have inside these walls. I will say that we have had some challenges with a few family members. We have had instances where we've had family members bring one visitor in and then go around to a back door, open a back door, and let some other visitors into the facility, which is outside of our screening process. And therefore we didn't know who was on site, that hadn't been temperature checked, hadn't had their hands sanitised and those sorts of things, and too many visitors in the room as it is. Look, I understand the anxiety around that. I understand that in a time when it's really difficult outside and we're all feeling anxious in our homes, we instinctively want to be with our loved ones in residential care, not only for the contribution that you could make to them, but also the contribution they make to you and your family network. But I would ask that kind of behaviour is really unhelpful, because then my staff are spending their time running around policing visitors who aren't doing the right thing, rather than spending their time doing infection control strategies, rather than spending their time checking resident temperatures, rather than spending their time making sure the care plans have all the current information that we need, rather than spending their time talking to the GPs when we have issues. I'd much rather our staff spend their time doing that rather than chasing around visitors who perhaps aren't doing the right thing for completely understandable reasons. You want to see your family members, I get that, but please help us out. Do comply with those restrictions that are in place, because if we find ourselves in a situation that those restrictions aren't working and we do have too much risk exposure on the site, my hands will be tied, I'll just have to lock it down. That's not what I want to do. I want to maintain this infrastructure that we've got now for as long as we can, because not only is it to your benefits, to our benefits, to the residents' benefit. We love having you on site. You add a lot of value to our community, but we really need to play by the rules just now. It won't be forever, but until we can sort of get over this hump, and then we'll hopefully get back to some normality at some point down the track, which I'm anticipating being several months. This is not going to be a short fix. Another area of behaviour that I'm struggling a little bit with in terms of visitors is some of the aggression that has been displayed towards our staff. And let me be very clear, there is an absolute line there that is not appropriate. When our staff are having to deal with family members who are being aggressive towards them, who are casting blame really on the frontline staff for what is a really anxious and challenging period for the whole community, it's not the staff's fault. They're here every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, looking after your family members. That's their job. If you have an issue with the restrictions that are in place, if you have an issue with the directions that have been given, be very clear, your issue is with me. Those decisions are mine. Those decisions are not the on-duty RN. They are not the EN working in your residence, in your family members' wing or villa. It's certainly not the carers who are trying as hard as they can to do that bedside care and support for your family members. They are not the people that you need to speak with if you've got an issue. So if you do have a problem, please don't take it out on the staff. This is not their decision. None of this is their fault, and they're doing their level best to keep our facilities not only safe, but a pleasant place for your family members to be. So if you do have a challenge or a problem with the restrictions, if there's something that you think is unreasonable, again, your problem's with me, please contact reception and ask to be put through to me, and I will speak to you about those. Again, I have a zero tolerance towards any abuse of staff. So please work with me on that, work with our staff, and then together I'm sure we can generate the best outcomes we can in what are pretty challenging situations. I'd also like to pass on my thanks to the broader stakeholder community of RSL Care. We've had some really fantastic responses from people who are just concerned, even without family members who just know us, volunteer here, know about our mission, know about our work. I'll give you an example of the Vietnam Veterans group. The ladies of the Vietnam Vets have a quilting group. Their quilting group has had to go in a hiatus at the moment due to the social distancing restrictions, but they've used their quilting skills to produce face masks that our staff can use on site, noting that there is a bit of a limitation in terms of the national stockpiles of face masks at the moment. We have plenty, we have all that we need at the moment. What we're doing is future-proofing ourselves a little bit by getting a stockpile of spare masks in the event that they are needed a couple of months down the track and if the situation was to change. And the Vietnam Vet Quilting Group, they've been fantastic. They've knocked up these face masks for us, as have some other volunteers who are just doing it off their own back. And that's an example of the really great response that we're getting as a community here at RSL Care, and I'm very grateful and I'm very thankful for that. How we're responding as an organisation. So we formed, when COVID first broke, early in the piece, we formed an emergency control organisation. That organisation is formed around the core of our clinical governance group, which is a really robust team of clinical leaders with a lot of experience in aged care. That group has a lot of experience in terms of infection control. We have very successfully, over many years here, had to combat and work around and defeat infections from influenza A and gastro outbreaks and those sorts of things. And the response we've had, initially from a prevention perspective, a preparedness perspective, and then the response phase in the very few circumstances where we have had a bit of an outbreak, we've been able to get on top of those really quickly to have some really very positive outcomes. All of that experience has gone into our clinical governance group. They're the people that do that stuff, and they've now formed the core of our emergency control organisation. That group also includes then some hangers-on like me, the Chief Finance Officer, to make sure we've got the resourcing that we need, some of that sort of business management support around that group to make sure that all of the members of our team are really pulling on that same bit of rope to do, make sure that really any action we take is about preparing ourselves, preventing the infection from entering our facilities in the first place, and being ready to respond in the event that it did. That ECO group meets frequently. We review every day the information that we're getting through the State Health Department, and I thank SA Health for the information it's sending out. It's really useful information. We pull it apart, we use everything that anyone's prepared to give us. Similarly, at the federal level, we're getting some really good advice around the steps that we need to take. Happily, look, I'm really happy to report that the advice we're receiving now for actions we should look to take is actually stuff we've been doing for a couple of weeks already. So it's nice that we're ahead of the curve, but still we pull apart every bit of that data that we get, every bit of that resource, every bit of that sort of framework that the state and federal health infrastructure gives us. And we use it, we make sure, we test ourselves to make sure that we really are in the best position we can possibly be. And I'm happy to report to you that we are. We are on top of this. The team has responded beautifully. The procedures we have in place have now been in place for several weeks. We've tested them. We've had instances where we had minor temperature increases, and we've used those as opportunities to really test our response in terms of if that was a COVID-related temperature, which to date they haven't been. And those systems have been really good in terms of how the team have responded, even at awkward hours in the middle of the night, as often these things happen. Also, we've got a really strong relationships with our supporting GPs at both Moreland Court and at the War Veterans Home. And make no mistake, GPs are a critical part of our response, and we speak with them frequently about what's going on out in the community, what we need to be doing here at RSL Care. And again, those relationships, they know our residents, they know them by name, they know them by face, they know their health outcomes, they know us as an organisation. So between us, we already have that dialogue and that confidence that means that we're really well postured to handle a response if and when it's required. Now that we are a few months into this COVID thing, I want to let you know that we are using every day we have to continue our preparedness in the event of an outbreak and to do everything we can to prevent an outbreak from occurring in the first place. So that preparedness and prevention strategies, every day we have up our sleeve is another day that we shore up our defences. It's another day we can take some more action, review some of our framework, resource some extra areas, look at staff training, look at what our shift rosters are, test and adjust on what we're doing with our family visits program, talk with some family members when we've got issues, for example, around residents who may be palliating, and we may need to explore some different family visit structures outside of hours and perhaps some additional visits and things. Every day we've had up our sleeve, we're using it wisely and very proactively to make sure that we've got the absolute best systems that we can in place. You can all help with that. Self-isolating at home, keeping a social distance of 1.5 metres out in the community, only going out when you need to. These are all shots you are firing in this war against COVID. We can do what we can do inside the walls here at RSL Care, but we are at the mercy of what happens outside these walls. That's why it's so critically important for the whole community to really take on the responsibility for those members who are more vulnerable and more susceptible to this horrible virus by doing the sorts of things that we've all been encouraged to do, self-isolating at home, making sure we wash and sanitise our hands, only going out for essential reasons when we need to, not having gatherings in a home beyond 2 people, keeping the 1.5 metres double arm distance between us when we are out. These are all strategies, these are all absolutely punches you are throwing in the ring on our behalf to help us protect our residents in this fight. And for that, I thank you. I absolutely thank you, because without that, without the flattening of the curve and without that sort of activity, it makes it so much harder for us if the only line of defence we have is the front door to our facility. That's why those procedures are so important. How are we looking going forward? Look, this is going to be months. We are not thinking of this as a short fight here at RSL Care. Our strategies, our planning, our mindset, the way we're posturing ourselves in terms of our energy and where we need to be, this is a minimum 6-month plan. I expect it will be longer, but what we're timelining ourselves on is, okay, what do the next 6 months look like? How do we work our rosters? How do we make sure that people get the right rest cycles? How do we make sure that we can maintain those family connections over such a long period of time? I'll be very happy if it's less than that, and I will take any day less than that I can be given. But in terms of what we need to do to prepare ourselves, if we don't look at that longer term time frame, then I don't want to be in a position where we're all surprised a month from now that this is still going on, because it will be. So rest assured, we do have a long-term game here. We are in this for the long haul, and throughout those 6 months, we will continually review what needs to happen, where we need to be, what the next steps are that we need to take, and then we'll shuffle that date to the right as our plan moves and as we do different things that we have to as the situation in the community changes, which I hope in the coming months we'll see an improvement. But equally, we need to be in the situation where we're planning for the worst, hoping for the best. We will absolutely continue to plan for the worst case scenario so that we're prepared for it. Anything back inside that, is then going to be well within our capacity to manage. That's enough from me for now. I will be back in touch with you again, either by letter, by email, updates through our Facebook site, posts such as these. If you do have any questions, please ring through reception and have your questions answered. And I do want to leave the last words as one of thanks again to all of you who are connected up with RSL Care South Australia. The response we've received, the support we've received, the family members that have pulled me up in the car park to have a chat with me about what we're doing, and the way that they've then expressed their empathy and their understanding of the challenges that our staff face has been really heartwarming for me. The families have really been quite concerned and grateful for the efforts of our staff, and we've got brilliant staff from the front line all the way back. I'm in a very fortunate position in terms of the staff network we have. So for the support that we do get from our family members, I thank you for that, for the way that you're working with us around the restrictions. Again, I thank you for that. And also for those who are more broadly involved with our organisation, like the Vietnam Vet Ladies, like the broader veteran group, who are looking for all the different ways that they can lean in and support us. We're very grateful for that support and for what you do. The sign-off we all give each other at the moment is stay safe. I want you to stay safe and happy. This is going to be okay. We have some challenges we have to get through. There's going to be a period of time where this is going to be difficult. It's okay at times to be a bit anxious. It's okay at times to be a bit sad, to be a bit lonely. It's okay at times to be a bit frightened by what's going on. But I think overall we need to also appreciate what a great response we've had here in South Australia, what a great position we are in, despite the fact that, within our community we've had many that have suffered through job losses and pressures on businesses and very real pressures that make this a very difficult situation to be in. But the way that our community has responded, the resources that are being brought to bear by the feds and at the state level, and I really think the way that our community is responding with one of a response of love and concern and care for one another, I think is something we can draw a lot of strength from, even though we of course will have those times that are a bit more challenging. So do please stay safe, please stay well, please stay happy. And once again, if you need us, we're here. Give us a call. We'll be happy to take your calls. Thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.